Bike culture is a really healthy thing, especially for this country. As a country, we've made a real serious investment in car kind of infrastructure for our transportation policy. You know, I think if you take a serious look at what's going on in the world and what the future holds for us, it's pretty hard to conclude that we're going to just continue to drive cars forever.
Well, right now car culture is normative culture. People don't talk about car culture because car culture is like American culture, or like the dominant culture in the US, whereas bicycling culture is seen as a subculture.
To continue the way we are with oil, for sure, and I think there's going to be like many different facets to our new modes of transportation, whether that is like trains, but also just locally bikes. I think that's going to be so important.
Right now there's sort of a subcultural aspect to bike culture. There's sort of an us and them kind of quality to it. And so if you ride a bike, and there's the whole kind of urban hipster phenomenon where people ride fixed gear bikes, and if you don't ride a fixed gear bike, you're not cool. It's like, come on, let's just all ride bikes. Who cares? You know.
Recent studies highlight an increasing number of Americans turning to biking or walking transportation, especially young people. In a time of increasing fuel prices and an expanding awareness of the environment, urban areas with reliable public transportation are becoming a more favorable place to live for a working citizen.
Is it really that hard? It looks like leisure bike.
As possible to as many people as possible. We work based on donation of either time or money. Sure. The mission and the purpose of the Davis Bike Collective is to help people fix their bikes, learn how to do it themselves rather than just having other people do it for them. And we do a lot of this through using reuse parts. And so we also want to make sure that old bikes that might otherwise go to the scrapyard or the dump sort of find a new life. And we also are really focused on helping to build bicycling community. So one of our emphasis is helping each other.
I think that it's a real misallocation of our resources as a nation to be so dependent on automobiles. I've spent a lot of time in other parts of the world where they aren't dependent on automobiles and people live wonderful, happy, healthy lives without cars. There are lots of really negative health effects of our reliance on automobiles in this country, and not the least of which is the fact that 35,000 people die in them every year just in this country alone, and 1 million people are worldwide. Bike culture has a lot of great personal health benefits for people. We have a horrible obesity problem in this country, from youth on up to elderly people. The environmental benefits are obvious. We can get people out of cars if they're able to live their lives by being more active and get around to the places they need to get to by walking or riding their bicycles in safety. That's a good thing for the planet, and I think it's a good thing for our communities.
You know, we also have to recognize that even if bicycles are more sustainable than, say, cars, and don't necessarily engage in the allow us to engage in the same sort of like oil wars that are causing so many problems in our world right now, the materials that bicycles are made of are also not completely innocent either. And so, we can't say that bicycles are completely like a perfect, innocent, peaceful technology, because they're not. But they are better in terms of a form of transportation. And so when people come in to just say fix their bike, sometimes they'll sort of also be saying, hey, can I borrow that tool, or can we share? Or even sometimes, oh, do you mind showing this person what you just did? So just helping everyone sort of like learn to fix bikes together and ultimately just get on their bikes in good working order and fix them up. Fairly regular basis, but don't consider themselves like bicyclists.
Me? Mm-hmm. Oh, every day. I ride my bike every day to work.
I think I'll always bike. My uncle Sam, he doesn't even own a car. He actually bikes to his job and back, and so I actually really like that lifestyle.
You've been on the road for 2 months, and I think it was just like really inspiring to people to know that you could bike thousands of miles, and just like having everything on your bike with you.
I could just disappear into the world with the clothes on my back and my bike, and I'll be the happiest kid alive. I just love to ride my bike.
Just about anyone can manage a bike.
Peace is a process. I don't think it's necessarily something that will ever be achieved, because there will always be conflict, but it can always be worked on. Just like we also talk a lot about safer spaces, because having a safe space is important, but you're never going to get there. You can have a safer space, though, where you're working on having it be a safer space. And by that I mean a place where people feel welcome and comfortable. It's really important to me to have Bike Forth be a place where people feel welcome. We have wars over oil, and entire cities are built around cars as an infrastructure. I mean, Walmart is out in the middle of nowhere. You have to drive to it, and if you're poor, Walmart is the option because society is built around that. Reframing how people think about what norms are. And what sort of, what is a privilege and what is just, well, what is a privilege and what is not. Because right now I think people think about having their own car and getting in it and going wherever they want really quickly and be able to find a parking place right in front as more of a right. It's something that is really tied to the idea of what it means to, like, say, have freedom and independence, which are these, like, really fundamental American values.
I think it's really good for building community. By biking through a local area, you're seeing the businesses and realizing what's there, seeing the plants, feeling the atmosphere, rather than, again, being stuck in a car.
Meeting these people along the way, especially on my cross-country trip, just having an understanding of people just promotes a sense of, like, I mean, you don't want to be in conflict with people that you understand and that you've talked to, whereas if you're, like, have this distance and this, like, just, like, ideas of people but have never met them, I think it's so easy to, like, have this wall up against them and, like, have, I don't know, have there be a possibility for conflict. I think when you know someone face to face, there's just, you're so much, like, less likely to, you know, to want to have any kind of conflict. We're not going to be able to continue the way we are with oil, for sure, and I think there's going to be, like, many different facets to our new modes of transportation, whether that is, like, trains, but also just locally bikes. I think that's going to be so important. Yeah, I think it's just going to be more widely accepted, more widely used, and hopefully our bigger systems will invest in that, and if not, I think definitely our smaller communities will.
So, we ask the world, we ask everybody, what are the ways we can come closer to a more sustainable future? How can we do that? How can we make the items we use today the same ones we use 10 years from now, 50, 100? How can we come to terms that our world is not replaceable nor renewable? The materials that we take are not worth the blood, sweat, and tears we see in the future. What can you do to change that?